Welcome to the Graduation Equity Webinar Series. I'm Kathy Anderson. I am a System Improvement Program Supervisor Lead, and today we are talking about mentoring educators for diversity and inclusion. This meeting is being recorded, and it should be available in the next couple of days on YouTube. We have closed captions available in the menu, so if you want to use those, feel free to turn them on. Our PowerPoint is posted on our Graduation Equity Webinar page if you want to follow along, and we'll have a resource sheet that we'll drop in the chat also. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, you can feel free to share. You can also add something that you're curious about today. People are always wondering who's in the audience. This webinar is brought to you through the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction's Student Engagement and Support Office. At OSPI, we believe each student needs to be prepared for post-secondary pathways, careers, and civic engagement. So happy New Year. It's been a little bit of a wild week in the natural world, and I know I'm looking forward to seeing some beautiful snow. Some of you might already have it. I hope wherever you are, you're all stocked up with your supplies and safe. In my life, I mostly travel around the intersection of the traditional lands of the Squaxin Island, the Coast Salish, the Cowlitz, and the Nisqually tribes. And if you'd like to honor the traditional lands where you are today, feel free to share in the chat. If you're not sure, our resource sheet will have links for you so you can find out more. I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous people who have stewarded this land since time immemorial and still live here today. If you want to learn more about the tribes in your area, we can definitely connect you with our Office of Native Education to learn more. I'm seeing lots of representation in the chat. Thank you for looking at your traditional lands. I see Puyallup, Paiute, Nisqually, Muckleshoot. Awesome. Our webinar series was created with the purpose of highlighting practices that increase access to education and ultimately to graduation. Through the webinars, we're striving to think critically about historical contexts and the opportunities that we have to get curious about and dismantle policies and practices that don't serve our youth. We want to make it possible for each student to have access to the instruction and support that'll make them successful in school and in life. So in that vein, we're going to talk today a little bit about why we're holding this webinar. I know school staff hold incredibly powerful positions. Their influence over students by their very presence makes an impact on how students see themselves too. And when a student of color sees educators who look like them and can relate to them, the likelihood of also feeling a sense of belonging increases too. And honestly, if hosting this webinar has taught me anything, it's that caring relationships are at the heart of success at school. Being an educator is a really tough job, and we know that the first 5 years are probably the hardest, and having support matters so much. We have the power to support newer educators in such thoughtful ways. I know that my mentor teachers were invaluable to me as a student teacher, And for myself, and then I think about the contrast of my first year of teaching. So I got hired in August, and I was a teacher that had a cart. You know, that teacher that moves classrooms every period. And I was teaching 3 different grade levels, and they put me in a lunch without anyone from my department. So 87 people applied for this job, and I was the lucky one who got this job. And it totally cut off my transition time. And it also cut off access to the humans who I desperately needed to talk to do my job better. So rethinking that structure, what could it have looked like if they wanted me to do well? If they had shared the burden, I just think about that year and kind of cringe. So decisions like that have such a huge impact on retention, and we want all of our Washington educators to find that great school and to thrive there. So today we're hoping you walk away from this webinar knowing some practices that influence educator retention, that you learn strategies that support diverse educators with inclusive practices that will impact the culture of your school, that you also get some resources to help you get started, and that you learn a little bit about the Nakia Academy structure and get inspired for ways your school or district might grow with these practices. I brought with me some colleagues from OSPI. We have Katie Taylor. She is honored to be serving as the director in the Educator Effectiveness Office at OSPI. She's supporting both the teacher and principal evaluation and the BEST program. We also have Bawajikekwe Luli, who is a program supervisor. For the BEST program at OSPI. And she prefers to say she's a caretaker of the program and is one of many who help uplift, support, and honor beginning educators. And we'll introduce Brooke in just a little bit. And we'll also have a panel a little bit later on. So welcome, everybody. Glad that you couldn't be here. Yeah, Brooke Brown getting some love in the chat. We also have, we have a poll for y'all because we want to know who's here. So I'm going to launch this poll, and you can tell me a little bit about your role at school, what grade level you work with, and how familiar you are with this topic. And we'll run that right now. And it looks like we have lots of school counselors in the audience today. And it looks like we've got quite a few folks from district office and the ESD and the OSPI quarter. Lots of middle and high school and both folks. And people feel somewhat familiar with this topic, I think. So the majority of folks are in that space. So I'm going to share back these results with you. And folks, if you didn't get a chance to be in on the poll, apologies for that. We're gonna move on though. So those are the results there. And first, we're going to hear a little bit from OSPI. And so, yeah, let's go. Bawajikekwe, you are first.
Good morning. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I just want to take a moment to introduce myself the way that I was taught. So I'll be speaking in my Indigenous language. I am a citizen of the Ojibwe Nation and a member of the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Ojibwe, located in present-day northern Wisconsin. So I just want to introduce myself the way I was taught. Buju, Bawajikekwe, Indigu, Misquadesi, Indurem, Mushkazibing, Indunjaba. So I said, hello, I greeted you, and I let you know what my name is, which, if we translate it literally, it's two parts. Bowajige means to dream, and Kwe means woman. So my name is literally translated as dreaming woman. And I say literally translated because there's a whole lot more to who I am. And my name is a whole story. So as you get to know me and as I live my life, I learn a lot about who I am, and you get to experience me. And it's never about really knowing me, but rather experiencing me. And that's how I approach names. And it's a worldview on relationships, or relationships is a worldview that I carry. I also shared with you that my clan is Turtle Clan. And if you recall, my name means dreaming woman. My clan represents dreamers, thinkers, teachers, and philosophers. And so that's not an accident or a coincidence that those two parts of me go together and work together to help me show up in this role as an educator today in my profession. The last piece I shared with you is about where I come from. I said Mushkazibing in Dunjaba, and that means I'm from the place where food grows on water, known as Monoman or wild rice. So thank you for letting me introduce myself. It's so great to be here. I appreciate being in this space in a virtual sense. Maybe someday we'll get to see each other in person. I hope that we do. And when we do, I hope you come and say hello to me, because I can't see you today, but you can see me on the screen. As Kefi said, I am a program supervisor for the Beginning Educators Support Team, known as BEST. So I get to work for the BEST team at OSPI. But I do prefer to say that I am a caretaker of the community, and I'm one of many. In BEST, we strive to support novice or beginning educators in Washington through comprehensive induction. And a significant part of that is mentoring. So just to give a little bit of background about BEST, we are a grant funded program. We offer grants and other professional learning that is free for mentors and induction leaders to build and strengthen their knowledge to support novice educators. And we define novice as years 1, 2, and 3. And we know in BEST that what we do for teachers, or what we do for new teachers, we do for students. As we get started with today's program and dive deeper into the topic of mentoring for diversity and inclusion, I want to ask if it's okay that we take a collective pause just for a moment and connect with our why. So, very kindly, I ask that we take 10 seconds to think about this question: why am I here today? So I will activate that pause right now and ask us to think together. Why am I here today? Thank you. My uncle tells me that when we have a reason, when we know our why, we put our heart, our mind, and our soul into it. He says our why is connected to responsibility. Thank you for the collective pause to consider our individual why and to ground ourselves in responsibility. Undoubtedly, each of us is connected deeply to our why, and I'm willing to bet that each of us, your why has a lot to do with your story, your history, your experiences, and your purpose. Once again, hello and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you, Bolaji Gateway, for helping us ground in our why. And when I think about my why and who I am showing up for, I think about many different levels of our system. I think about the families we are showing up for, who send their students to school each day with many hopes and dreams. I think about the teachers and administrators who greet these students and who entered education with a variety of lived experiences. I think about school staff who in a variety of roles contribute to the well-being of our students. I think about central office folks who strive to serve individual needs while supporting the changes that need to be made in how we operationalize our work. And I also think about regional and state leadership who work to serve everyone from the classroom on out. I am really proud to be working for an organization that has a strong commitment to connect all students with educators who are reflective of our global society, and by increasing access to a workforce that is diverse, culturally responsive, and racially literate. In supporting these strategic priorities, we are prioritizing access to that support so that educators and school staff reflect the diversity of the students they serve. And we're supporting opportunities to access high quality professional learning for in-service educators. And that's a lot of what the best work is grounded in. The strategic priorities, all of them, especially number 3, impact all of the work that we do and is strongly supported in our Educator Growth and Development Division through the guidance we provide to districts in using their federal funds and in our allocation of state funding, through our teacher and principal evaluation program, and through our BEST program. When our agency equitably stewards federal and state resources and drives high quality professional learning with a culturally affirming lens, then districts will have systems in place to ensure students, educators, and staff are provided differentiated academic, social, and emotional supports that cultivate belonging and identity. Each of the divisions and departments that comprise our agency work to support this vision both through the policies and practices we support outside the agency and in the ways we work as an agency. How we enact the RCWs and WACs for which we are responsible says a great deal about what we value. And the programming we support through our beginning educator support team exemplifies our commitment to a diverse and inclusive workforce. The induction standards, which comprise the foundation of our BEST program, create a web of support that focuses on retention and growth of our newest educators.
Thank you, Katie. Hello again. At this time, I would like to introduce a specific and important example of mentoring for diversity and inclusion that BEST is honored to offer in partnership with the Washington Education Association. Together, we host Nakia Academy. Nakia Academy is a mentoring and leadership academy by people of color and open to people of color. The purpose of Nakia Academy is to keep novice BIPOC educators in the field by identifying and training veteran BIPOC educators as mentors to support the next generation of BIPOC leaders. Nakia Academy is named after a fictional unsung hero and humanitarian whose philosophy includes lifting others up. Annually, OSPI and WEA bring together 3 cohorts of educators of color over a 4-month period for a total of 20 hours of learning, connecting, community building, skill building, and healing. Nakia Academy alums say again and again how their experience in the academy promotes growth and transformation in their practice, increases confidence as a professional, and creates conditions for belonging as an educator. We are currently in our 4th cohort of the OSPI and WEA Nakia Academy, and to this date, we have graduated nearly 500 educators of color. Nakia has a lot to teach us about best practice regarding mentoring for diversity and inclusion. It's a living, breathing example of the type of teaching and learning that is by design built for people to succeed, thrive, excel, and become empowered educators. If you're interested in learning more about Nakia Academy and want to have a more intimate conversation about how to apply for the next cohort or how to support an academy at your organization or district, how it works, or anything else, please reach out to BEST at OSPI. The next part of our program will go a little more in depth with the experience of Nakia Academy. We'll have a keynote speech by an alum and a facilitator of Nakia Academy, followed by a panel of educators who are also alum and current practicing educators of color. who have been through Nakia Academy. We've invited our guest speakers here to share their experiences, share their story, show up as authentic, and share the importance of Nakia Academy as it relates to today's topic of mentoring for diversity and inclusion. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our headliner for today, our keynote. Her name is Brooke Brown, soon to be Dr. Brooke Brown. She is a Nakia Academy alum, a Nakia Academy facilitator, and the 2021 Washington State Teacher of the Year. She has spent 15 years teaching through English language arts and ethnic studies at Washington High School in the Franklin Pierce School District in Tacoma, Washington. She believes in creating classroom communities that are brave and inclusive, inviting students to show up authentically, centering their experiences and encouraging them to develop empathy and compassion for others. She is currently in her third year as the instructional equity specialist in the Franklin Pierce School District. She's been married to her best friend, Eugene Brown, for 18 years, and they have 4 children. She's currently a doctoral student pursuing her PhD in curriculum, instruction, and assessment. She holds a master's degree in education from Pacific Lutheran University and 2 bachelor's degrees from the University of Washington in sociology, history, and American ethnic studies. I just want to say that Brooke is an amazing and incredible educator. Not only that, she's a fantastic human being, a wonderful friend, a beautiful sister. From the words she speaks to the life she leads, Brooke exists in light, shows up in love, leads with honesty, compassion. And if there's one thing I can say before she begins, I would say get your pencil and paper ready, because she's going to share a lot of resources for you to continue the learning after today. You'll want to stick around after the keynote, because Brooke will be moderating a panel of educators who are also alum of Nakia Academy. You won't want to miss that. Brooke, thank you for being here. Welcome. We love you so much.
Thank you so much, Buaji Gekwe. What an introduction. I don't quite know how to follow that. I see lots of friendly names on the attendance list today. So good morning, hello, I miss you. It's good to see all of you virtually. I wish we were sharing space, just like Buaji Gekwe said, because y'all can see me, but I can't see you. But just sending virtual hugs and excited for this time together. Just like she said, if you could have something to take notes on, and we're going to do some reflection today and some engagement. And I don't want to just talk at you. So please have something to write on, open up a document, however you take notes. And feel free to engage with the chat. I will be taking a look at it as often as I can. And if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A section, because we will have time for that. All right. So today we're going to be talking about key practices for mentoring educators for diversity and inclusion. And I'm going to share some of my lived experience with this topic. And I like to think my conversation today is a little bit like the veggie tray at the cookout, and the main the main course is going to be from our panelists that we get to hear from. We're so lucky to be able to hear from them this afternoon. All right. So I'd love to start off with this quote. This is from Sonia Renee Taylor. She wrote the amazing book, The Body Is Not an Apology. It's a book on radical self-love. And this was a tweet that she put out in 2020. And it has just been something that has just centered me over the past few years, and continues to be sort of the foundation for just the way that I show up, and sort of my dreams for this work and for the world that we can create together. And so she says, we'll not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. And I just think it's so important that we acknowledge that we are living in a world that has changed since the pandemic. I know Kefi talked about the weather. There's just so much around us that is different. And I think we can get discouraged by that. We can look at it as things that are frustrating or that we're grieving. But ultimately, I think we have the opportunity to determine that they're actually an opportunity. And so, how can we begin to stitch that new garment together that fits all of humanity and nature? That includes our students, every single one. That includes our educators, every single one. That includes all of our leaders. And how do we create systems that honor all of our individual and unique contributions? And so that is going to take some creativity. That's going to take some innovation and doing things differently. And so I think it's really important to start today off with hearing from a young person. And so this is actually a video that I saw the first time in a Nakia Academy session. And I just think it's super powerful. And so I'd love us to watch this video. And I want you to think about and jot down, what dreams do you have for the places you serve and the people you serve and serve with? What does that opportunity to stitch that new garment look like? So we're going to watch this video. It's just under 3 minutes. And then we're going to respond in the chat where you're going to have a chance to reflect on those dreams. All right, here we go.
Hi, I am Jaleisha Johnson. I am 18 years old and I am with Run DSM. I think that school should be a garden, a place for us to grow. I want my kids to grow up in a time where educators have the right tools to teach and plow and sow and reap the seeds of success. The school system should not be based off success. No child should feel like a failure or a flop. I hope we learn to teach our kids to leap, to be bookworm turned butterfly. At graduation, we won't give out caps, we'll give out wings. Chicken wings. Yeah, school should have chicken wings, and no child should leave hungry, whether that be of the belly or the mind. When I become a teacher, I would treat every child like they are mine. I would spoon feed them sonnets when Shakespeare be too hard to swallow in one bite. I would teach them not to bite their tongues, teach them with their arms are vines reaching toward the sky, and if they need to, really need to, they can call out in my classroom without a warning. My classroom door will come with a warning, caution. There is love in learning a bloom here. Please do not crush it. And on days when my kids want to crush it because all they mom and daddy taught them was to destroy anything good, days when their fists be wrecking balls and their mouth be abandoned construction site waiting for the next project to sink in, I will remind them that this classroom is a garden. Here, we don't break nothing but the bounds of expectations. Have you ever had somebody believe in you? Really believe in you? Take the time to water you from the roots up. I will take my kids' hope and hold it in my back pockets. Save it for the days when they feel like they don't belong to nobody, and I'll remind them that they belong to me. But most importantly, they belong to themselves. They belong here in this classroom garden. I will teach them to leave their doubt at the door. Let it fall like dead matter off tree branches, because we don't have room for nothing negative here. Here, we are a whole garden, a whole ecosystem, and everybody got a job, and everybody grows, and everybody knows what it feels like to be loved. When I am a teacher, all my students will be loved. I will tend to them. Let them soak up all the scholarly shine in my sun, and none of them will get picked on like petals. They will unlearn, seeing their darkness as dirt. I will teach them to see their skin as soft soil, a place for something to grow. And I promise you, if I believe in them, my classroom garden, I promise you, they will grow.
Thank you so much for letting me share that and really set the foundation for us today. It's just a reminder that young people are everything that's right in our world. They are strong, they are so brilliant, they are creative and innovative. And often I think it's us as adults that are scared or unsure or, fill in the blank about embracing that change. And our young people are asking for it. And so what I would love for you to do now, is to respond in the chat, reflecting on what Jaleisha had to say in the video. What dreams do you have for the places you serve and the people that you serve with? I just really appreciated when she said, have you had someone believe in you, really believe in you? I just thought that was so powerful. And I also appreciated when she talked about how her students belong to her, but more importantly, they belong to themselves. So I'd love for you to just take a moment in the chat and we can all take a look at it. What dreams do you have for the places you serve and the people you serve and serve with? Feeling like they belong, health, happy, self-sufficiency. Absolutely. Having a voice, learning that can't be swallowed in one bite. Yes, deep learning. That they know and feel that that you believe in them, to not limit themselves. Yeah. No student should feel like a failure and that they should never leave hungry, whether it be the mind or the belly. Yes. We're nourishing our students. I love that idea. Sense of belonging. Yeah, that feels valued, respected, heard. Absolutely. Advocating for themselves, connections. Ah, I wish we had so much more time to go through all of these wonderful comments. But belonging, I keep seeing that. Lifting one another up, being welcomed, yes. Understanding their purpose, reflection, having each student have a goal or dream for after school, absolutely. They have them, right? And I think it's up to us to help them get to them, to attain them, absolutely. All right, students, providing students with respect, love, and reassurance, sense of belonging. Absolutely. I love that of reminded me why I wanted to teach. Absolutely. How are we building these spaces where we're at? So dreams to change, heal, grow, and transform together. Awesome. I can't wait to revisit this chat to go through all of the comments. So one of the things that I think is really important for us as we start to really dream and think about what can be is to think about who are we continuing to learn from? Whose experience do we value? Whose experience do we lift up? And so I wanted to just share this picture with you. This is my first ethnic studies class, and just really thinking about when I have the opportunity to sort of think about the way I wanted to structure my ethnic studies class. So much of it is about the restructuring of power and really thinking about my experience and my knowledge is not the only one that matters in the classroom. And so how do I start to see my role shift? How do I start to see us as sort of the facilitator of the learning, not the one that is just giving all the learning out? And so really seeing and valuing my students' experience and understanding that my knowledge is not the only one that matters in the classroom. And then, yes, I see you. I see your comment in the chat. Yes, and on this day, we were looking, we were preparing to write a critical family history project. And so I had different folks from the community and from the school system come in and share some of their history. And that day, Erin Jones was in my classroom. And we were talking about mentoring for diversity and inclusion. She is someone who has been a mentor to me since I was 14. I met her as a young person. I was a kid that my first love was basketball, and I met her at late night at the Y, and just continued to have a really beautiful friendship and relationship. And so thinking about how much that mentoring has impacted my life and my growth as an educator. And so I just wanted to also think about who are other folks that we can continue to learn from. And so there's another picture of Erin on here, but just when I think about mentoring and mentoring for diversity and inclusion, and just thinking about how my mentors have changed and shifted throughout the years. There's a picture here of Emil Petrie, who was the director of the Office of Minority Affairs at UW. Pamela Ralston was the first professor where I took an ethnic studies class and just fell in love. My pastor is on here. My children's godmom, who was earning her doctorate, and she actually her double doctorate, right? And my girls are wearing shirts that say Black Girl Magic. But just understanding how much I can learn from her, but also how much I learn from my children, and how much they teach me about life, about how to be a better educator, how to be a better person. I think about Glenda, who has supported our work in community responsive wellness. I think about Dr. Dugan, who has just been really instrumental in learning about street data and supporting my journey as a doctoral student. And I think about Vicki Bates, who has been such an instrumental part of my learning and transition to working at the district office, and how just watching her be a leader, she models it. And so I learned so much from her. And then this last picture is me as a young person. And so I think about so much how I sort of come into my knowledge of learning and mentoring and growth for who I needed when I was a young person, and what that small young version of myself needed and wanted. And how do I continue to keep that at the forefront always as I engage in this work? So I'd love us in the chat to just take a moment and think about someone who has served as a mentor to you, and think about the qualities they possess that help you grow. And I'd love for you to just, you can drop their names if you want, or drop in what qualities did they have that helped you to grow. And then if you haven't had a mentor, what qualities would you want your mentor to have? And I'd love for us to just drop that in the chat, and we can take some moments to take a look at that here. All right, yeah, patience, good listening skills, modeling a growth mindset. Absolutely. Caring, patience, empathy. I love folks dropping names in too. I think that's a great way to bring them into this space as well. Genuineness, example, love, constructive criticism. Yes, that is something that as a recovering people pleaser, I have struggled with. And so constructive criticism, that feedback is so important to our growth. And I am learning to have a different relationship with accountability because I have had folks that modeled that for me. And it's hard. It's so hard. Belief, yeah, that belief in you, calming, reassuring disposition, patience, avoidance of judgment, emotional intelligence. Ooh, timely feedback, yes. So the way, what I hear saying is the way we do it matters as well. A sense of calm, compassionate honesty, truth. Yes, we need more of that truth that help us to grow into the best versions of ourselves. The ability to have candid conversations, absolutely. Presenting other points of view without disvaluing my own, that's a great skill. Let's see. Consistent hope, fully showing up and making space for authentic listening, absolutely. Inclusion, transparency, heart-centered, Ooh, I like real human. Yeah, these are all so great. Again, I can't wait to go through these. But it's really about how can we help one another continue to grow into the best versions of ourselves. And I think that is the real work. How do we make that happen so that the growth that we have within ourselves translates into the systems that we serve and we create a new way of being together. So I'd love to share a little bit about my journey with Nakia and thinking about my first year teaching. So this is my 18th year of teaching, and we had a mentorship program back in the day, 18 years ago. And you know, it was great. We had a person that supported me, and I think about that. And I think what is so important for mentoring for diversity and inclusion is really thinking about how do all of our different parts of our identity show up in our spaces of work, and how does that impact the way that we show up. And so my first year of teaching, I wish I had someone that could have supported me in all of the ways that I didn't really know. And I think sometimes there's this idea that it's like first year teaching is just hard. You just got to get through it. And I would push back on that idea in that my job is, or my thinking would be, how can we make it better? How can we provide the sort of what Yemi Stenbridge would call those protective factors to support folks not just surviving their first year, but thriving in it. And so really thinking about, and again, kind of coming back to what Marcy always said, what we do for our first year teachers, we do for our students. And so how does that, what does that look like in creating? I saw a TikTok video a couple weeks ago where a teacher was sharing that he had a new student that was arriving who was a newcomer, and he just couldn't contain his excitement, and he was talking about all of the things that he was so excited to do to welcome this young person with this just this beautiful like celebration, and all of the ways that they're going to work together to create this environment for belonging. And I was just like, what if we rolled out the red carpet like that for our new teachers? What would that look like? How would that feel as a new educator? And then it wasn't just a one-time event, right? But they were the featured guests when we go places and when we do, you know, when we're having meetings, and really thinking about how do we value what they're bringing to the table? How do we make sure that mentoring is reciprocal? It's going both ways. Then I think about, I had the beautiful opportunity to be a participant in the very first cohort of Nakia. And I can tell you hands down, I've done a lot of professional development over the years, and hands down, it was one of the absolute best professional developments I have been a part of. And I think there's a lot of aspects to that. I think the fact that it was in a cohort model, that we got to have 8 sessions together with the same facilitators in the same group. We built a sense of community. And it also was recognizing the unique assets and talents and gifts that we bring into the space as educators of color. And so there were just so many fantastic things that I learned at Nakia, that participating in Nakia Academy was one of those things in my life that was sort of like before Nakia and after Nakia in my professional career, that I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And then the next 2 sessions, I got to be a part of Nakia as a facilitator. And I got to be a part of so many conversations, and with so many brilliant leaders across our state, and having a chance to learn from them and with them. Oh, did my view just change? Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry about that. And so just that opportunity for them to continue to grow, and I got to learn so much from them as well in that in those sessions as their facilitator. And then through the partnership, with our own school district and our local union, we were able to have a Nakia session with educators from our district. And so I believe we had 12 that were able to be a part of a 3-day cohorted session where they got to go through the material, and we built community here in our own school district. And so that's who you'll get to hear from, 2 of our amazing, brilliant alumni from Nakia today later on. And just what a great opportunity it was to continue to expand on the learning, and what a great partnership that both our local union and our district said that they valued. And so there's a cost connected to that in subs and in release time, and just really making sure that they value our staff of color, and this was one way to demonstrate that. And so now what we have was a group of folks that went through, a combination of folks that went through the WEA and OSPI Nakia, and our own Nakia district cohort. And we have our first group of Nakia district mentors, and they are able to provide mentoring to our new staff of color. And we don't quite have enough at every school yet. Notice I said yet. We're going to get there because our district believes in it, because they see the value and the investment in not just hiring, not just retaining, but helping our staff of color to thrive. And so what does that look like? And we're figuring it out. We're not perfect, right? There's no one way to do it the right way, but we are learning, and we are committed to continue that process of learning. And so some ways that I think are really powerful to think about, what would that look like in my own district? What are some things that I could take from this learning? And another powerful voice in this space that we've been learning from is Dr. Adeyemi Stembridge, and he wrote Culturally Responsive Education in the Classroom. He also wrote more recently Brilliant Teaching. But this has been something that I've been thinking a lot about as we're talking about mentoring for diversity and inclusion, is thinking about the concept of relationships. And so this graphic on the left-hand side, excuse me, that talks about students and teachers comes directly from Culturally Responsive Education in the Classroom. And it talks about how the relationship between students and teachers is super important. We hear about that a lot, right? The necessity to build relationships with our young people that are reciprocal, they're interpersonal, they're built on trust, right? All of those things are so important. He also talked about it's important for students to build those relationships with one another, that there's a shared sense of identity as part of a group that's engaged in learning that's facilitated by the teacher. But he says, okay, those are both very important. We hear about those a lot, but we must really remember about that third point. That's the element of content. It's what we want students to learn. So it's great to develop relationships with students, but it's always in focusing on how we build a depth of understanding of our content. It's what we want our students to learn. We want to leverage those relationships that we build to deepen the learning. We want students to develop a deep understanding and mastery of the content that requires students to have their own meaningful relationships with the content. We want them to be able to transfer that learning to other content areas. And as educators, we get to model our own love of learning in that same context. And so then I started to think about, how does that same graphic, how could that apply to the mentor-mentee relationship? And I've been reading a book for school by Michael Fullan, and he talks about how relationships are central to success, but they must develop towards a greater mutual commitment and specificity related to the purpose of the work. So again, we want to develop the relationships between the mentor and the mentees. We want to build that sense of community between our mentees. However, or in addition, we want to always think about, how are we deepening our mentees' understanding of pedagogy? Because as Dr. Dugan would say, equity work is first and foremost pedagogical. And so if we're developing these awesome, deep relationships, that's a great first step. But it always needs to be in sort of in the direction of deepening our pedagogy, of creating those opportunities for our students to think critically, to think deeply. And so how are we setting up those opportunities for our new teachers? And another thing that Michael Fullan says is that only changes in daily culture are strong enough to alter behavior and beliefs. It's not going to happen in a PD one time, and then we expect folks to go back and make those deep changes. How are we building that consistently over time together? So another thing that Dr. Stenbridge talks about is the 3 elements of responsiveness. It's trust, validation, and care. How are we demonstrating that with one another? How are we demonstrating that in our classrooms, in our meetings? How are we building that? And the best way for our students to understand that we care is to model that for them. And so how are we, it's really about being a better human, right? And so how are we building that into the work that we're doing? So this is a quote that comes from one of our panelists that we're going to get to hear from later. And so it's a little bit, it might be a little hard to read. So I'm going to read it to you if that's okay. And it says, well, going through the PDs for Nakia, I couldn't help but think how much it would have helped me when I was a new educator to have a Nakia mentor. It would have meant so much to have someone who had experience as an educator of color acknowledge and validate me when I felt the effects of racism inherent in our schools. Being an educator is already so very difficult. Being an educator of color can be even more isolating when those around you don't see the problem with children using the N-word, the microaggressions like being called the wrong name, or having someone to help you navigate having a racist student or family. I hope as there are more Nakia mentors that educators of color can feel the support from their peers so that they may continue to do the best for our many diverse students. And so I'd love to just share a few ways that I think are important about how we can be responsive. So one of the first ways is as leaders, understanding your own positionality and identity. So how do you understand your own cultural lens and how it impacts how you approach the work? It's really trusting others' lived experience. One of the things that I think is really integral to this work when we're thinking about mentoring for diversity and inclusion and really just building spaces collectively that are more human-centered is how comfortable are we with not always having all the answers? How comfortable are we with innovation and creativity and leaning into doing things differently? It's really speaking to getting out of our comfort zone on purpose. Like I'm a planner. I have a paper planner. I want to know all the steps to all the things. And if we're really going to lean in to doing things in a different way, we're not going to know the end from the beginning. So how do we lean into that discomfort? How do we create space for innovation and creativity? Another one of my favorite scholars, Dr. Sean Ginwright, he wrote a beautiful, one of my favorite books called The Four Pivots. And he says, most of our work is focused on eliminating those things that cause us harm, addressing racism, fighting sexism, and reducing violence are all important. But reductions in these things are not victories in and of themselves because eliminating things that harm us is not the same as creating things that heal us. So I don't want to live in a neighborhood that has less violence. I want to raise my 4 babies in peace. I don't want to have a classroom that has less behavior management issues. I want to have a classroom space where everyone feels like they belong, where everyone feels seen and valued. And so what does that look like to create that third space that hasn't existed before? How do we listen with humility? My husband and I were talking about this last night, about how often we've been in conversations where our society just doesn't have the capacity to wait. Like, we just can't wait. And we think about finances, you just think about so many things. I was reminded the other day when I was having a conversation, it was like people were just cutting each other off. Like, they couldn't even wait for people to finish their sentence. And so what does that look like to push back against that urgency? To create time and space to intentionally listen. Not that performative stuff where we're like, hey, how you doing? And then you keep walking. But to really deepen our care for one another. When we talk about community responsive wellness, it's the idea that if I'm well, but you're unwell, then collectively we're unwell. That impacts how we show up to the work. How do we listen with that stance of care? And then the last one is really thinking about how do we create leadership pathways for mentors of color and to compensate them for their work? We've been working in our district around sort of some ideas from Atomic Habits and thinking about moving from motion to action. It can't just be that that's what we want to do. We say we value it, but then our programming doesn't change, our policies don't change. We fund what we value. And so really thinking about how do we shrink it? How do we stack it? How do we sustain the work? We can't change everything overnight, but what are the small spaces that we can start? We don't have to do a complete overhaul. We just got to start. So what does that look like to start in your space with your levers of influence? So I'd love to end, sorry. One more question. What are some ways you have found success with being responsive to the needs and experience of mentors and new educators in the district that you work? So go ahead and drop that in the chat. What are some ways that you have found success with being responsive to the needs and experiences of mentors and new educators in the district that you work? Or what are some ideas that you have after being in this space today? Reflection, absolutely. I think that's one of the most underutilized tools that we have. Yes, listening, being regularly present. Yes, I think presence is one of the most important things we can do that is such low-hanging fruit. What does it look like to not multitask, but to give folks your full presence? That's huge. Appreciation, feedback, yeah, presence, absolutely. Communication, all these things are so important. Yes. All right. So the last quote I want to leave with you is from the Book Street Data, another great resource that says, we can't dismiss, deny, quantify, or rationalize away the voices and experiences of children at the margins. Allow them to be truth tellers and moral compasses for what you say you believe about equity, but learn to listen deeply without boomeranging into past practice. Thank you so much for your time today. I believe we have just a few minutes for question and answer.
We do. Yeah, let's go to Jocelyn and check out where we're at. I mean, I'm looking at our Q&A right now, and I'm not seeing anything in there, but if people do have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. And yeah, let's give Brooke some love. I see you using your reaction buttons. What an awesome presentation. Right. Well, if you would like to give Brooke some questions. She's going to be staying on with us for our panel portion. And yeah, that'll be great. So we are going to go to the panel. And our panelists today have worked with Brooke. And Brooke is going to be amazing and moderate our panel today. So that's awesome. And she has brought her friends, Kim Bond. They is an 8th grade English language arts teacher at Keithley Middle School in Parkland, Washington. And I don't know if I see Kim on yet. She has worked in education for 9 years. Oh, there's Kim. Yay, good. Their favorite part about education is working with and getting to meet the students. They're compassionate about creating a space for students to feel comfortable, being their whole authentic self. And in the words of one of her students, she accepts every person of color, form, and gender identity without hesitation. Thank you. We also have with us Lovey Harvey, who is an elementary school teacher with the Franklin Pierce School District. She's had over 16 years of experience in education. She is a mother of 3 and wife of a retired U.S. soldier, which provided her with some rich experiences living and teaching overseas, as well as on the East Coast. Education is her passion, and igniting curiosity and learning is what drives her to continue her journey in helping young minds grow. So welcome, panelists, and Brooke. They are all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening to that. But I'm telling you, this is the best part. So don't anybody leave. You have the just esteemed pleasure to get to meet 2 brilliant, amazing, phenomenal educators that I'm just so grateful that I get to learn from and with. So I'd love to just share, or not share, I'd love to ask sort of my first question is just for you to share, like, what was the Nakia experience like for you? And maybe a little bit about what are your sort of dreams or goals for that space?
I guess I'll go because I was unmuted. So I'm Lovey. The Nakia experience for me was, the first word I can say is comfortable. It was a space where staff of color were able to we were able to come and share and go into liked experiences and share concerns and share hopes and share our desires for education and for supporting new staff that were coming in. And sorry, what was the second part of your question?
We can just start with that one for now.
Okay.
Yep, that's perfect. What do you think, Kim? What was the Nakia experience like for you?
I feel like it was dope. I think that that's the best way to describe it. It was so validating, I think is really what it was. I might have been one of the quotes from earlier. I can't remember what I say half the time. And so if it was me, great. If it wasn't, I shout out to whoever did say that, because I wish that I had had a mentor of color when I was a first-year teacher. Even though it's 9 years in my district, this is only my 5th year in the classroom. And so because of that, I had a mentor who was like, oh, I don't need to support you at all. And so getting to see how we can support people on any journey in the Nakia cohort was fantastic. And just to be around so many like fantastic educators of color in my district who I don't like ever get to interact with was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What do you both have been working with new educators of color in our first exciting rollout year? I almost said pilot, not a pilot. It's here to stay. What are some of the things that you're noticing that folks are sort of needing in this space, sort of in real time? Because y'all are the experts working in the classroom and working with folks who are new to our profession. So what are things that you're noticing that they're needing?
I can go first on this one if you want. Cool. I'm noticing connection, I think is probably like I saw a lot in the chat of when people are talking about their success or suggestions were like check-ins and things like that. And I think I would go even one more in depth is that like connection piece of like seeing them as a human being. Yes, as an educator and also as somebody who is like existing and living in a system that was not designed for us to be successful in. Like it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. And so I've only had the opportunity because we just got back from winter break to have a couple of meetings, but the ones that I have had have been like, I just want to sit and talk to you before we get into like the formal, what are some goals you have and things like that. But just like connecting as human beings has been the biggest thing so far.
And to add to that, I would say validation. All of our educators come with some experience, right? Lived experiences. And being able to know that those experiences are valid and that we can use those experiences and our backgrounds to help us be successful in the classroom, help us make connections with students, help us, be able to share the knowledge that we bring. And I think sometimes, one, just being a person of color, but then on top of that, added to that, being a new educator, the validity is not there. And so, or it's very much diminished or pushed to the side. And I think with having that connection and kind of drawing out, giving them that comfort to be able to draw out, like, you have information, you have experiences. What can you do? How can we pull that out of you to help you incorporate that into your connections and your engagement with your students, as well as, with fellow staff members? I think, like you said, Kim, connection and then adding on to that validity is very, very important, because there's a lot of times where we're just not considered leaders, or we're not considered as having the experience or the education, but everyone comes in with some type of experience.
Like, yeah, yes to all the things, absolutely. And I think just as we say we value our students' lived experience, how are we modeling that with the adults in our spaces? And so when you think about, right, that quote from Marcy, what we do for our staff, we do for our students, how are we modeling what it looks like to value the humanity of our educators, of our mentors, of our mentees, right, all the way down. All right, so I had a question too of thinking about, capacity. And so we're building this program. This is our first year, and just wanting to think about what do you think, what role do or could administrators or other school staff have in building out sort of a different type of mentoring structure? Like we're adding Nakia mentors. And again, I should probably explain this just for folks to have a depth of understanding. We are a best mentor district. And so we have best mentors. And so Nakia mentors are not replacing our best mentors. We are adding another layer of support. And so we have elementary mentors that are release mentors, and then we have peer mentors at the secondary level. And then we also have specialized mentors that are for CTE and special education. And so Nakia is another level of mentoring PK through 12, as well as our new staff at the district office, to really think about how do we support folks that are new to our system. So I just wanted to add that before, just to give a little background. Okay, let me repeat the question. What role could or do you think administrators or other school staff could have in building capacity for Nakia mentoring programs in their spaces?
I can start. So with the best mentors, and thank you for bringing that context up because it goes right into my answer in that our best mentors in my building have a push-in period or like an observing period where they can go and support the teachers that they are working with. I don't have that as an Nakia mentor, but my administrator is super dope. Shout out to Rosita Castellano. In that she is really willing to work with me to try and find a way that she can support. Like, and whether that's like covering a class so I can go do that, whether it's covering a class like long term so we can, so I can have that time where I'm going in to support our newer teachers of color and also our certificated staff of color in my building in general. Like one of the people that I meet with relatively frequently is our school social worker, which is super dope. And so then I guess my question to myself is how can I build that capacity so then that way the people I'm mentoring can work with others to build that, like grow like a tree. Yeah, so my administrator is being very flexible and what's the word I'm looking for? Taking the initiative to proactive, that's the word, proactive to help support me so I can carve out that time to support new teachers of color and other certificated staff of color.
I would say that administrators can reach out to see how they can be of support. So Kim, that's awesome that you have that support where your administrator is wanting to find ways to help support you. And each person is different and each person has their own personality. And I think that as administrators, really taking the time to get to know who your mentors are in your building and ways that you can support them. So having that conversation is absolutely essential. It's necessary. And sometimes that conversation might be, depending on personalities, sometimes that conversation might not be as easy to have or something that's organic, right? And so being able to step out of your comfort zone and see how can I support what are we doing? What is it that our Nakia mentors do? What is it that, how are you working with our best program? And what does that look like? And maybe even asking to invite themselves to see what we do. Because they're not going to necessarily understand something. Anyone in general would not necessarily understand something that they haven't seen, that they haven't witnessed, or that they haven't been part of. And so I would say to really just start that conversation to understand what we do and why we're here, and really the value of the support that we provide.
Yes, all the things. When I think back to the slide on ways to be responsive, y'all are just really knocking all those right out the park, talking about those. I hear you, Kim, really sharing about your administrator creating space for innovation and creativity. We know that a lot of districts are moving into doing more with less in the future with budget and having to scale back. And so really understanding, again, we fund what we value. And so there's even more opportunity, right? Abundance mindset, opportunity to stitch that new garment. There's more opportunity to really not go back to the way that we know wasn't working before. And I think we really have to really build on that understanding that it's not the job of our educators of color to retain themselves. And so what are the systems and structures that we are putting in place? What are the policies that we are shifting to create space for really our systems, our schools, our culture to change. And so one of the things that I think is really powerful that connects to what Lovey was sharing as well, and really thinking about systems and school buildings and sort of our own lived experience. So I'm a doc student, and so I've been doing a lot of reading on leadership. And so one of the things that I read recently in a class that I'm in this quarter says leading in a culture of change does not mean placing changed individuals into unchanged environments. Rather, change leaders work on changing the context, helping create new settings conducive to learning, and sharing that learning. And so I think that just speaks beautifully to what both of you just shared, and that the new, or I shouldn't say the new, the type of leadership that's required, the type of just our way of being in 2024 is different than it ever has been before. Education has changed. Our young people are different. Our world is different. And so I think a lot of times, I can tell you as a parent who has 4 children, 20, 16, 11, and 3, 10 out of 10, don't recommend. I'm just kidding, they're great. But when I think about the way that, the world that I grew up in, it's different. It's different today. And so how can we expect that the way that we teach, the way that we lead, that would remain the same? And so I think, again, these are opportunities for us to lean into growth. These are opportunities for us to lean into different ways of being together. One of our commitments that we use in our district meetings is that we don't always have to be, we don't have to be articulate all the time. And I think when we can really recognize that not only do we not have all the answers as leaders, we shouldn't. Because what I kept hearing, what Kim and Lovey were both saying, is it's about partnership and it's about creating together. And so no one person has the right answer. And so the answer is found in the collective, it's found together. And so I would love to just hear from you both, like, what's your dream for Nakia? Like, what do you see could be potential future for the program? It could be potential for conditions in our schools. What do you think?
What I would love to see is, I would love to see our educators represent the student body that we have. I would love to see the diversity. I would love to see the opportunity for students to connect with their teachers, to connect, to be able to have that familiarity, because familiarity builds comfort, and comfort is helps build trust. And so many of our students don't have the trust, and it's really hard when they're not able to make a connection with their teachers, with the educators that they have. And if we're looking at really focusing on the whole person, right? The whole child, the whole student, we have to be able to have trust. We have to be able to have connection. We have to be able to engage organically with our students. And what that means is we have to be able to retain our educators of color. And in order to be able to retain them, they have to feel supported. They have to have those relations and those connections. And with Nakia, my hope is that aspect is broadened to all of our districts, and that the connection and the representation is built, right? I look at Nakia as, I was thinking about this, and I don't know, just in my own time, I was thinking about how Nakia is not I don't feel like it should be, or support, I'll say support for our staff of color. I don't feel like it should be an option, but absolutely a necessity. And we already know that mentoring new teachers, new educators is a requirement. It's not something that we can choose to do or choose not to do and expect success. And so when we look at Nakia, I was thinking of it as like more of a branch on a tree, as an avenue to be able to reach and do new things. But as I kind of went back and looked at it more, I feel like it should be more of a root of a tree. And that root is one thing that helps keep those relationships, build those relationships, and keep those relationships grounded. And then the branches of the tree are things that will help support and strengthen and build the fruit that we're looking for in our students. And so when we think about Nakia, really, I believe that the important part here that we want to make sure that we're extending to our new staff of color is that we are here to support, and we're here to encourage, we're here to build, we're here to uplift, and to let our staff know that we need you, we want you, and you are important and needed for the success of our students. And that's what we're here for. We're here for our students, we're here for our kids. And if we don't have the options for really building those opportunities of connection and belonging and really seeing our staff individually for who they are, then those are going to start to fall off, where they're not going to be able to be maintained or retained. And so I see Nakia as being absolutely necessary, but we want to continue to expand and build on it, and just really let people know, let our new staff know that we're invested in them, which is what we should be. And our investment in them will also spill over to our students.
Unfair to follow that up, but I mean, it is great. No, you're great. Yeah, all of the things. I think I have so much that I want to add on to yours, but I'm gonna answer the question first. I think for me, when I dream of things in my building and then farther on, it's that it's not just certificated, right? Like it's not just the teachers, which I think oftentimes when we talk about supporting our educators of color, really what people are kind of alluding to is just people in the classroom. Which, as somebody in the classroom, cool, I appreciate the focus. And also I want to be able to support any staff of color, period. Like whether it be in my building, in a building near, right? So like if I'm dreaming about my role within that thought bubble, I want to be able to do that. And I've worn a lot of different hats in my time at my building. And so it's really cool to be able to like go back to like putting that hat back on and sharing that experience with somebody who's currently doing that. The retention thing, like, thank you for bringing that up, Lovey. It's the biggest thing that I can harp on whenever I'm talking to the people that I'm working with in mentorship. In that oftentimes I think places try and hire and focus on, oh, we got to get staff of color, but then it kind of stops right there. And it doesn't really talk about how, like, us as people, right? And when I hear like, oh, we got to hire staff of color, and then the conversation ends at that point, it makes me feel like a number on a page, right? It feels very tokenistic. And so with Nakia and dreaming and thinking of support in ways along those lines, it feels more genuine, right? It feels rooted in community and the wholeness of us as individuals, because we also are working in the system, right? And Nakia is a way, I think, for people to feel that and then to want to stay within a space where they feel valued. And I think that's, at least that's my interpretation of it, right? Happier teachers means happier kids most of the time. Like that, if we just bare bones it along those lines, it would be really dope for my kids to see more adults in their building that look like them and like value them as human beings in a way that they don't get to currently within our district as like a whole. I'm the only staff of color in my hallway. And so I would love to be able to see in education that be like an oddity rather than the norm, as like a dream along those lines. Definitely I'm less figurative, I think, than Lovey, but that's okay. I really liked a lot of what you said, and I'm losing all of my thoughts because I had to answer for myself first, or else I was going to forget my own thoughts. And so I think, yeah, the biggest thing for me is that community piece. I think I almost think that Nakia could get in dream world long future so naturally embedded that the intentional, like, okay, we have to make sure we do all of these things has to happen, right? Like I almost want it to go so well that my job is no longer required, is like the goal of that, in terms of how we have to create and do things, and then they're embedded within a system that doesn't look the same as what we have now.
Oof. Y'all, I appreciate you both so much for sharing your wisdom and just your brilliance with everyone. And I think you just did such a beautiful job of sharing just how Nakia is one way that we get closer to really living into our full humanity, recognizing our own and recognizing one another's. And that's how we're going to get to wellness. That's how we're going to get to belonging. And that's how we're going to get to spaces of healing and liberation. So thank you so much, both Lovey and Kim. And Kefi, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Thanks, everybody. We hope the conversation doesn't end here. We hope that you take some of what you heard today to your leadership team, to your professional learning community, or even talk to students about it. It's coming up. We do have some resources to share. There's also a lot of stuff that's on our resource sheet. These resources are on the resource sheet. So if you want to check them out, we had some awesome recommendations for books. Lots of great books mentioned today and inspired the talk today. So checking those out. We do have the educator support webpage to look at. There's the video link in there as well. And we have a funding document for if you'd like to look at funding options for running some mentoring as well. Next month, we're going to be talking about easing transition with Rashad Norris, taking a look at practices that you can use to make incoming students and even staff feel welcome. So please share this link with friends who you think might be interested. We love to see new faces out there. We have an evaluation poll, which I'm on a launch right now. And or can I launch right now? Yes. Okay. There it goes. We appreciate your feedback. It helps us improve the webinars each month, and we do read it, and we make changes based on what you say. So much appreciation for taking a few minutes just to let us know what you're thinking. We're also starting to think about what we're going to do next year. So if you have ideas for presenters, after the webinar closes out, there's a longer form survey that you can fill out and just tell us who you think we should have on or what topics you really want to learn about. And we'd love to see our listeners get clock hours for joining us. If you join live today, you're already registered for the year through Zoom. You'll also need to register for clock hours monthly in PD Enroller. PD Enroller is going to send you an evaluation in your email, and we just verify your attendance and then release your hours. If you're watching the recording of this video later on, our process changes just a little bit. You register each month for clock hours in PD Enroller, and you complete their evaluation, and you'll also do our graduation equity feedback survey, and that just signals to us that you watched them. So we'll verify your attendance every couple weeks, and then we'll release your hours that way. And if you have questions about any of this, you can email Ronnie Larson. She is awesome, and she does our Clock Hours support. Again, thank you everybody for joining us today. We will see you hopefully next month.